Hello, friends. We start our lectures about philosophy of consciousness, and I hope that all time what I spend for preparation for these lectures, I hope that it will be interesting for you. Okay, and today we will talk about main position. Uh, about context of philosophy of consciousness today, and it is introduction A. After this will be short lecture where I've finished this work, and it will be introduction B. The basic moment of this lecture, it is free moment. Firstly, I will talk about two these points and about phenomenological identification of the phenomenon of consciousness, basic approaches to study of consciousness, and it is the first lecture, this lecture, and after that I finish this lecture and we will talk about a real context where exists today modern philosophy of consciousness. Okay, and we start our work with the first point. Phenomenological and descriptive identification of the phenomenon of consciousness. When we talk about consciousness, we must say that it is a very strange phenomenon. It is so closely to us because when we talk about consciousness, it is me. It is not something external to myself, and nevertheless, that's why only because it is me, it is something so close to me, it is something so deep in me, it is so deeper inner. I must say that it is close to my understanding. Very often we can catch this moment because not always we can understand, for example, why I do this, I make this or another. I can't understand this. It is only reaction, we usually say in these situations. That's why we can say that consciousness, it is open uh, closeness phenomenon. When we talk about open, it is closeness. This is us. This is me. Uh, Closeness because there is no such thing as consciousness. We can't see it because when we say when we talk that we can see, it means that we catch it before us. But consciousness not exist before us. It is always under my back, under my back, and it is something what exists back of my understanding. Uh, but we will use this metaphor for explanation. When we talk about open, we will use two main very okay, I say so. When we talk about open consciousness, we mean that the view from inside. It is a phenomenon when we can understand and we try understand it uh, from my own position, inside myself, from inside myself, I can say. So, from first person, yes. Um, And basic question here we can formulate, so how do we stand in front of yourselves? Because when I want to catch my own person, my own consciousness, my own subjectivity, I can stand before myself. And it is in order I say that it is like distinguishing a process when I distinguish uh, ourselves from ourselves, like something another. It is identify consciousness. It's very important. And we stand in this inner first person vision, uh, inner understanding, consciousness. And here we should say that it is a phenomenological vision. And here it is vision when we can aware what we aware before us, for example. In this position, we can catch consciousness, our own awareness, only when we hold out in time. What I mean, time, it is basic form of my own subjectivity, and exists different uh, points where I can model of myself by what I distinguish myself from myself, like something another. Time, it is process where I can distinguish myself from myself when I stand from phenomenological, or I can say another vision from first person. Yes. And first trigger, first sphere where I can distinguish myself from myself like another, it is my memory, where I can turn my hand, my head and see something what I can name like me, but it will be not me. Of course, we talk about memory. We can see our photographs and different um, elements of your memory, and we always will distinguish something what exists now and see this, and something what existed before, what was before. Of course, it is the first, and this trigger by what I can understand what the time. It is a very famous example when we talk about Augustine. It is his first formulation question of the problem of time and problem of what the time. But it's another question. We continue our distinguishing process of understanding consciousness. Next step, it is body. Of course, when we talk about our subjectivity, we can catch something another only we feel our body, because body, it is not something subjective. It is something what exists before us, and we can see our body. It is um, so good. It is so um, useful for us. If, of course, we will not have sick, of course. And it is object by what I can distinguish what I am and what I'm not, but it is not uh, like stone or something another. Yes, it is not something really external. It is so object what have my own subjectivity, what I am. Next step, and of course, we see this steps correlation between triggers and spheres and models of time. And next step, we have told about past, we have told about present model, and now we talk about future. And of course, future, it is something what already not exist. It is desire. It is something what not exist, like memory, object of my memory, but it is something what uh, didn't, something what wasn't. Yes, it is something what I didn't, what I only can imagine in sphere, and this sphere can be realized in my life. For example, of course, not all desires, not all needs can uh, create the presentation about my consciousness, about my ego. Yes, like synonymous with consciousness. Here, I should say that, of course, it is very abstract introduction. Of course, all these notions, it is scientific notions, and that's why what I use today, like synonymous, in next step we will distinguish. Okay, desire, not all desires, not all needs can create my imagination and understanding me like ego, me like something subjective, but only desire something what exist like not physical reality. And here we will talk about human desire, what really can realize our own self-consciousness. Okay, and we will talk about this moment in next lectures. That's why I finished this point. And next step, I remember that we have told about open aspect, this view from first person where we have our consciousness like open. And next step, it is moment where not our, when consciousness not something open, before what exists not something like subjective phenomena, but what exists like objects. It is position from first person, view from third person. It is view from outside, external vision. And here we can catch this subjectivity, we can catch this experience of subjectivity. And here, of course, we will talk about objects that we called animate, alive, that is having some form of consciousness. And here we can formulate the question: what makes us think that an object has and can has consciousness, or so, or subjectivity? Okay, we can say another. What drives us to animate objects? It is the specific question for this vision, third person, from third person. Okay, and here when we talk about this specific object, we can see that we may see that some object we name like living, yes, live, and another like dead. How distinguish these objects, because all these objects, it is only what exists before us. We can catch, I repeat it, we can catch experience of subjectivity. And here, of course, we will talk about hierarchy of conscious objects. Of course, first level, it is object what different to us in appearance. And it is first level, and it is first question, how we can distinguish a living and dead objects. In next step, we will ask about similar to us objects. Object what looked like me, like you, like us. How understand who is in front of you, another animal or person. I remember that it is hierarchy. Hierarchy. And in second step, we know that, for example, these objects, it is living life. And next question we will ask yourself and situation where you will be. It is animal or it is me. It is question about specific your own experience, because animal, it is something external to you. But if you will some object like your own existence, you will ask yourself, if it only external, have this object have experience like me? How I can understand this? How I answer it is object me? I mean that have this object my own experience from first person vision, from first person understanding or not? It is the famous question of Thomas Nagel, and what is like to be, and here we should write human. What is like to be like human, like man? It is the main question for second step, second level of understanding. Um, what we when we talk about external objects, about we talk about objects. Okay, and we try to answer to this very shortly. Here we, for example, should say that how distinguish dead and living, alive object. I can say that it is something what it is something what exists not directly. Okay, I say another. I mean that when I see before me objects and I must distinguish this object, uh, I see something strange, and these stranges, these moment properties, what I can explain by external understanding. Here I should mark that, of course, I talk not about mythological vision. It is vision. I have another task. I don't describe historical form of understanding reality, for example, from myths to philosophy and etc. I talk about moments what exist in this sphere too, but I distinguish these acts in non-historical vision, of course. It is important for understanding. And I return to a moment where I have stopped. And I see this object and I must to catch, I must to distinguish this, yes? And I see something strange in some objects. What is strange? Strange when objects have behavior activity what I can't explain by external causes. For example, when I drop stone, yes, I broke stone or something activity from my side with objects. These objects have activity only what I can explain by my own activity because I create these effects. But if I create something, I make something, and objects demonstrate effects not what I expect from that. From what? Yes. This moment when I catch this situation when object demonstrate me unexpected behavior. It is moment when the my curves create effects what I can't expect. It means that this not my cause. It is my activity not cause activity of this object. And that's why when I talk about, for example, if a cause of this activity not external, I will think that exists something internal, what create activity of this object. Okay, and it is, of course, we hold our vision in phenomenological explanation. In next step, it is from second person vision. And when we answer to yourself that we have object, what life, we can ask yourself, it is animal living object, right? Or it is human. For example, you see before us, before you, the similar object like you, and we can know it is me, it is something like me, or something another. Of course, this scheme will be repeated, but in another form. What I mean? I mean that uh, the cause, external cause, it is again my own activity, will be not something unessential. It is activity what create only one. Dead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my dead. I create dead. I'm sorry. Dead. Of course, it is situation struggle. When I create dead for another person, and I only in this situation can understand it is person like me, human, real human, not animal, because only in this situation these risks will not have needed effects. For example, another person, another object, another animal will demonstrate courage before these risks from my side. And it is trigger for me will be that it is, of course, it is like human. It is criteria. Okay. And we answer to this basic question. I remember is closeness like another aspect of consciousness, like a continue of opening of consciousness before us. And we have another step. It is Second step, basic approaches to study of consciousness. Okay, and if we will, here we will see two main vision reviews. It is structural view and dynamic review, the same, but we will turn some moments in this structural review. Okay, I repeat some moment, but firstly, we should say about two main paths. Of course, it is two main paths. First, direct intuitive way of understanding, starting. It is from first person, of course, you remember about these. And second path, it is on direct when we talk about symbolic, we research artifacts, for example, of activity, consciousness, of consciousness. And or we will have you work with empirical data, Okay, when we realized first path, we from first person, it is what we can find in our in history of study. Of course, it is religious mystical path. It is yogic practice, of course, and this path, if we will distinguish this from philosophical meditations, we can say only about what? This path and this approach uh, have a correlation and dependence from language, language. And this way it is practice without correlation with language. When we will, for example, talk about phenomenology, this approach, when we try explain in language what we catch in our meditation, our existentialism with its own specific language, but it is specific language, nevertheless. Okay, and second path, it is on indirect direct study from third person vision and study from third person. Of course, it is work with artifacts, symbolic. Firstly, of course, symbolic artifacts. It is logic, philosophy, philology, and etc. Basic part of culture and scientists, scientific researchers. It is work with symbolic on direct artifacts. Of course, second moment here it is empirical data, and about this we will talk more concretely in the next step. I mean science, of course. Okay, and here it is the final part of my lecture today. Uh, it is dynamic review, and here I will talk about the center of this structure, and it is center today. It is center of modern researchers in this sphere, in philosophy and scientific and whatever. Um, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Uh, so named hard problem in consciousness. Uh, Today we have a moment where oh yes, I can say that the biggest not biggest but the more parts of knowledge, scientific knowledge, uh, concentrate on the great problem of modern science. It is problem of consciousness. It is so important for modern civilization and modern history and modern and etc. etc. We will talk about, for example, computer science. We will искусственный интеллект, intelligence. I forget this word, simple word. I'm sorry. Uh, I mean that about different searchers in different branch of science, and where and always we will catch the problem of consciousness. It is center problem of modern science, and center of this problem of this sphere, it is problem of heart, it is problem of consciousness, more concretely heart problem of consciousness. And if we will talk about two different ways, I mean main ways, it is ways from east and west. Of course, if we return to previous presentation, it is two main paths. It is direct, intuitive way and indirect. We can here write, it is, for example, it is, of course, not, I will say that it is so today. Maybe it was not so before, but today it is so. Intuitive way from first person, it is east way, yes. And western way, of course, it is on direct way. It is vision from first person vision, this phenomenon. And today we have a moment when all these traditions, Western tradition and East tradition, have a like a moment meet, moment cycle, moment finished cycle, when we unite, study from first person and study from third person. Hey, I recommend you watch, for example, video. It is not something specific for world science. It is only can show a specific moment. It is, I mean that it is not something what realizing in Russian science. No, it is specific for all world science. I recommend to watch video with dialogue Dalai Lama and Russian scientists. Link I will send you below this video. And it is very important for understanding what really happened in our searches in understanding in modern sciences. And it is so important. That's why I will spend our next lectures only about problem of consciousness. It will be little course about problem of consciousness. And in next step, we will talk about specific about concretely modern formulation problem of consciousness, like its center of modern researchers. That's all. I hope that it will be interesting for you, my friends, and we continue in the next lecture, and we continue introduction in the philosophy of consciousness. Thank you very much, and goodbye.